Welcome to Football Letter Live. This week we welcome Penn State football letterman Brett Brackett and Philadelphia chapter president Shane White. We've also got a ton of highlights from Saturday night's whiteout victory over Auburn, and we'll also look ahead to this week's game against Villanova and share membership opportunities for all Penn Staters. If you love Penn State, you're in the right place. This is Football Letter Live. Welcome into Football Letter Live. We have a great show lined up for you tonight. Brett Brackett is here. We have Shane White, who's the president of the Philadelphia chapter. We hope that you're enjoying everything that falls under the umbrella of the Football Letter brand. Saturday, you get that email. On Monday, you get the recap of the game by email with the great Football Letter by John Black. You get great photos from Steve Manuel. So we're hoping that you're enjoying everything that the Football Letter has been bringing to you, whether it's the blog, the emails, or right here on Football Letter Live. Tonight, I'm joined as always by my co-host, John Petishnock. John, how are you tonight?
I'm doing awesome, Paul. I'm still coming off the high from last weekend with the whiteout and the game day and everything that brings. You know, we've talked about, the energy in State College and University Park, and that has not stopped one bit since we got back to campus and the season has started. And I would expect that it's not going to stop. I know fans are always kind of curious, like, who is Lee Corso going to pick when game day visits? Right. He went with Penn State. Turns out that was a pretty smart choice. And Reese Davis, the College game day host, they had some media availability the day before. And somebody, I think, asked jokingly, somebody asked Reese Davis, College game day host, how much does Kirk Herbstreit kind of, champion to come to Penn State for the whiteout? And Reese's response was, Kirk doesn't have to champion. Like, we all want to come here. We all want to be here for the whiteout. They always, circle that date when the schedule is announced. And so you look at this crowd, and about halfway through, Reese Davis turns around and just thanks the crowd for showing up and bringing that energy. And he said, the day before the show, he's like, you can't put into words how much the crowd's energy helps the show. It helps the guest. And so, you see Old Main Lawn there. It's just, right. To me, it's the most quintessential college football backdrop to have game day on Old Main Lawn. You've got that backdrop. You can see Mount Nittany in the background. And so, it was just such an awesome day. I mean, you could just see, I feel like, Auburn fans were happy to be here. It was their first trip. And so, yeah, the game day view from the Old Main Bell Tower was pretty special.
Yeah, it's always unbelievable when game day comes to town. You mentioned it. It's the quintessential location for game day right there on Old Main Lawn. And the crowds, they just kept, everywhere you turn, there were people dressed in white. Auburn brought a lot of fans over, I would say maybe close to 10,000 fans in the stadium. I know they sold all 6,000 of their tickets, but they were all over the place. There was great tailgating, great crowds, and even look at the great interaction between Coach Franklin and some of the Auburn fans as well.
Yeah, you kind of see this is right after Coach Franklin had appeared on the game day. Said, as you can imagine, he had a pretty busy day, so he was making his way through the crowd. And, just at the tail end here, there were a couple Auburn fans. There's actually an Auburn family off to the left. And, James said, welcome to Happy Valley. And their response was, thanks. It's been a great experience. And like, when that family goes back home to Auburn, they're going to tell everybody about that moment. And all of those people are going to tell everybody. And, even when we go to Auburn next year, that's going to be a story that's being retold. And so, being the head football coach at Penn State has a lot of responsibilities, and a lot of that is, or some of it at least, is, off the field interactions, making sure that, people who visit Penn State have a good experience. And so that was kind of a cool moment that happened.
Yeah, there are certainly hostile places to visit in college football. And certainly during the 4 hours when teams are on the field at Beaver Stadium, it's as hostile of an environment as there is in college football. But fans feel welcome here. I think this is a destination for other Big Ten teams to come here. And I think it's because they're all treated well, right? There's the level of respect that our fans bring to visiting fans, and an appreciation that they decided to come to Happy Valley and spend some money and stay and visit and stay in our hotels and all of that. So that's not something new to Penn State. I remember Alabama coming up during the 80s and then again in the 2000s where we would invite them into our tailgate. It's just it's that kind of place coming here. Make no mistake, it's a difficult place to play during those 4 hours at Beaver Stadium, but it's also a fun place to visit as well.
Yeah, I mean, I even go back to the Appalachian State game a couple years ago where, there were fans who gave Appalachian State a standing ovation after that game. It's, Penn State fans obviously love and are passionate for Penn State, but I think they also appreciate just good college football. So, I mean, I'll always remember that moment, Appalachian State coming off the field, getting a standing ovation. And there were a couple of threads that we saw on social media in the last couple of days. And I know you got tagged in one post where, Auburn fans were saying like how wonderful of an experience that they had in Penn State. And so it was sort of, it was the best case scenario where Penn State wins and the Auburn fans feel like they were treated well. And, it was kind of like the best of both worlds. And I wouldn't have expected anything else, but, it was still a nice feeling when that happens.
Absolutely. Hey, speaking of things that you'll always remember, John, I mean, I'll always remember the night in 2001 when Adam Taliaferro came through the tunnel against Miami after the horrific spinal cord injury that he suffered the year before against Ohio State. Against all odds, they told him he'd never walk again. And in just a short year later, he was coming through that tunnel. The 20th anniversary, Adam back in Beaver Stadium, taking that similar walk out to midfield that he did that night in 2001. Some great video here. John, what were your impressions of Adam being back in Beaver Stadium?
I think there is such an appreciation and a reverence for Adam from, not just the fans, but, the current players. If you see here, like, PJ Mustafer, as soon as he turns and see Adams, he gives him a big handshake. I think, Adam has talked with, he's talked with the players in the program. James has talked about wanting to keep him close. And so, I think, one, there's not a person more deserving of this moment than Adam. He's put in work that, most of us could never even dream of. I know I couldn't ever dream of it. And so it was one of those things where good things happen to good people. And it was nice to see Adam have that moment. And he led the fans in the "We Are" cheer during the game, along with a few other Lettermen. But it was just one of those, it renews your faith in humanity when you see, Adam Taliaferro, overcome the odds and be back on the field at Beaver Stadium. And look, he did it in front of the 10th largest crowd in stadium history, 109,000 fans. And so again, and I have to imagine that gave a little bit of a boost for the players when you see, Adam Taliaferro walk out right before kickoff. You think to yourselves, all right, we've got this, or at least, I don't know, maybe I'm just, assuming that, but you'd have to think that plays a little bit of a role.
Hey, and John, all the stars come out at night. There were plenty of Lettermen at the game. I saw Michael Mauti. I saw Zordich. I saw, there were just a ton. Saquon Barkley was in the house that night, came out to lead the "We Are" cheer.
Yeah, I mean, every time you turned around, you almost bumped into an All-American or, a college football Hall of Famer. You couldn't take more than 2 steps. And so, but it's just great to have those guys, back in the stadium. I mean, they were happy to be there. I was standing next to a couple of them, like in the second half, and, you could feel their emotion. If a penalty went against Penn State, they would stand there and, kind of like argue and say, how could you call that? And they would do it from a player's perspective. And, it was just nice to, have those guys back. Shelly Hammonds was there, Reggie Givens. I mean, I wrote a blog post thinking that maybe there was 24, and I was just thinking about, the Letterman right in front of me. There probably was close to 100. I mean, it was just, like I said, yeah, it was, but again, it's easy to take that stuff for granted, but how many college football programs can have 100 Lettermen come back for a game? I mean, how many programs can really say that? Maybe 5 or 6. And so it was, if anything, I also think that speaks to the current level of the Penn State football program, that there's enough interest and enthusiasm that, look, Saturday night, whiteout, they want to be in Happy Valley. And I thought that was just it's always nice to see guys like that come back.
Absolutely. I saw Deshaun Hamilton on the sideline as well. Well, John, look, we're now 9 minutes into the show and we haven't even talked about the game. I mean, there was so much going on with the whiteout, with game day, Letterman coming back, but we played a heck of a game that night against the top 25 Auburn team coming into Happy Valley. Their first time in 90 years playing a Big Ten opponent on the road.
Yeah, you kind of think, like, how does that even happen? Like, how does that much time pass? And so, But yeah, it was one of those things where, look, the whiteout is always special, but I think it's not necessarily that it was even a team from the SEC, but it was a team that fans had never seen play in Beaver Stadium before. Fans were out tailgating all day long. I feel like many of them left the College Game Day set and they just walked right over to the stadium. I know that we talked with one of our top volunteer leaders, Paul Anderson, and we're going to have that video coming up in a few minutes. But yeah, it was just such a special day. And, the South Tunnel enhancements that we talked about a little earlier this week on the blog. I mean, how you look at that shot, is there a recruit in the nation who sees that and says, I don't want to play for Penn State. I don't want to play for James Franklin. And so that was just so key. But in terms of the game, I didn't even realize how good of a stat line Sean Clifford had until after the game ended. And James talked about that specific play where Sean extended the play and found Jahan Dotson in the back of the end zone. Jahan Dotson throwing a pass, what can he do? And so it was just, it was just such an incredible football game. I walked into the media room afterwards and just kind of looked around and said, we just need to acknowledge like how incredible of a football game that was. Like somebody needed to say it out loud. And so it was just phenomenal.
Sean Clifford, as comfortable, as poised, as confident as I think we've ever seen him in the Penn State uniform. 28 of 32, I believe, was his final stat line. Insane numbers against an SEC defense, right? Jahan Dotson, quietly one of the top 5 receivers in the country. I don't know how quietly 10 receptions, right, for 70 plus yards could be, but yeah, just an amazing, and you get to see what we have been promised through the offseason, right? This Mike Yursich offense, but also the swagger and the bravado that has been brought to this offense. This offense whose confidence was shook last year and is now pumping on all cylinders.
You get the feeling that nothing is going to phase this team. I mean, going into Iowa City, going into Columbus, I don't think there's going to be any sort of level of, boy, we hope we win or what's going to happen. They're going to walk into every stadium this season and expect to win, and for good reason. They have defensive playmakers, Joey Porter Jr. returning that touchdown. I know it was called back, but hey, it's all part of the game. And right. I love that sense of celebration at the end from him. And yeah, I mean, look, I don't think it's any secret that, Sean Clifford has had his doubters over the years, but look at what he's done through the first 3 games of the year. Penn State's a top 6 team. It's a top 6 team. And the guys in the locker room, they support him. They have the confidence in him. And so, yeah, we could sit here for the next 2 hours and talk about the game. It was such an incredible weekend. But yeah, it's certainly when you look at Sean Clifford and Jahan Dotson, they are certainly leading the way, at least offensively.
Absolutely. I know we cover the team, right? We're both fans, right? We want to look down the road to a top 5 matchup potentially with Iowa, but for right now, it's Villanova in our sights. Before we get to Villanova, though, we always feature our affiliate groups. We were able to catch up with Paul Anderson at his tailgate, Paul Anderson of the Middle Tennessee chapter, and how his tailgate has become an area that brings chapters from all over the country together. I'm Paul Clifford, CEO of the Penn State Alumni Association, and we are out here in the North Tailgate lots with Paul Anderson, the past president of the Middle Tennessee chapter. Paul, tell us a little bit about your tailgate that you have going on here.
Well, so we have this tailgate spot we've loved being.
All right, some technical difficulties there. We will try to effort to get that video back out to you. But hey, John, let's just go ahead and jump to our first guest tonight. Shane White is joining us. He is the president of the Philadelphia chapter. Shane's a 2018 graduate. The chapter was founded, if you could believe this, founded in 1924. And Shane's going to talk about how the chapter has an impact year-round, including during football season. Shane, welcome to Football Letter Live.
Paul and John, great to be here with you. It's an honor to speak on behalf of all the great work that we do here down in Philly.
Absolutely. So you're Penn State Abington grad. Talk a little bit about your Penn State experience.
Yeah, I think my Penn State experience is a little different than many, right? For those that are watching, Penn State Abington is the old Ogons campus. And I started there and fell in love. I mean, I think when I was getting involved in leadership opportunities and the impact that we were able to make within the community, really tied me to the campus, and I decided to stay all 4 years. And I took advantage of being right outside of the city. I was able to take advantage of internships and co-ops my end of my junior and senior year that are catered to other local universities in the Philadelphia area as a Penn Stater. And I made us proud, Paul. I mean, I had offers right out of college from those internships. And, I think they were thrilled to have a Penn Stater. And I really worked with career development to make sure that those opportunities are out there and we can offer them to the students there at Abington. So, that's my Penn State story. 2018, BS in business, and, had a great time. I was at State every weekend, though, you best believe. I couch surfed. I got the most out of it that I could up there. But the impact that I was making at Abington and within the community was just tremendous, and I loved it. And that's what being a Penn Stater is all about. So,
hey, Shane, you talk about falling in love. It seems like you fell in love with the Philadelphia chapter. What first got you involved with the chapter? And then can you talk a little bit about the process of how you eventually became president?
Yeah, so I got involved with the Philadelphia chapter as a student volunteer, actually. So Liberty Ball, our Thon committee, leverages the Abington campus and the Thon chapter there. And we ask student volunteers to come and help run the gala that night. So I volunteered 2 years in a row. If you've ever been to the Liberty Ball, you understand why I fell in love with the chapter. It is literally like a wedding without the bride and groom. So there's no drama, right? We had a great time. No, I think that's where my love fell with the Philadelphia chapter. And then I was getting involved post-graduation. I sat on the Liberty Ball committee as the events chair. And we were able to expand our events from just an annual gala to 3 to 4 annual events to try to cater to recent grads and other people that might not be able to afford the gala, but we still want to be involved and able to support. And then a year after that, I co-chaired with the chair that was doing it for 2 years on her own, Kate Simcox, great woman. We were great friends now. I just had dinner with her a few weeks ago, but she had a baby and had to step back. So I became chair of Liberty Ball. And then coincidentally, I became president of the Philadelphia chapter. So right now I'm wearing 2 hats. And I know we're about to get into the next question, which should be fun. But, the work that we do is just phenomenal. The impact we have is phenomenal. And that's why I do what I do.
Well, I don't know if you anticipated this as the next question, but Shane, I mean, the Hope Gala is a phenomenal event that we host every year. The Philadelphia chapter is one of the largest chapters in the Penn State universe, right? I don't know if it's the largest chapter. I know we have a ton of alumni that live down in that area, but you're a recent grad. You're 3 years out of school. How have you navigated being chapter president? And, are there areas where you've seen your own kind of leadership skills grow?
Yeah, Paul, I want to correct you real quick, though, because we're the Liberty Ball, not the Hope Gala. I love what the Hope Gala does.
Sorry.
But I want to make sure people know the difference.
My bad.
Yeah, I think the pandemic has helped. And I know that sounds odd, but I've really been able to, I think what comes with this responsibility and what you have to master is time management. And the pandemic has helped with that because I am primarily working from home, right? And the events that we do, although we are starting to get back in person, it's easier to manage the events and the calls and the things that we have to do. I think when I think futuristically, what will happen is, I have a drive to work. It's about 45 minutes, whether I'm going into Philadelphia or North Jersey. Traffic does not move over here. So, leveraging that time in the car, trying to make the best use of it, whether it's, talking with some of our partners or some of the board members, our weekly touch points. So a lot of it has to do with time management. But with all my leadership experience, in my undergrad, and the experience I had in my co-ops and internships, and even in my current position, I feel like I was set up pretty well for this. And even my 3 years out, following Tyler, who was our past president, Becky and Brian DiMattesa, folks on the Liberty Ball committee. I mean, they have set me up for tremendous success. And I know that you know them, Paul. I mean, they're great people.
Amazing.
They were dedicated volunteers. And you know what? I still have them in the back of my pocket, and I text them more than you would know. So I have a great support system, and I can't even begin. I don't want to tear up here, but I have 12 amazing board members. You know what I mean? And the only way I can do this position is with their support. And they are so dedicated to what Penn State stands for. They're so dedicated for what we do here in Philly. And I'm entirely grateful for them. And that's how I'm able to do this. So.
Hey, it's okay, Shane. I mean, Penn State is, it's a special place to a lot of people. And so, we get emotional all the time talking about Penn State. Hey, you talk about those dedicated board members, beyond the Liberty Ball and kind of your involvement with On. What else are you doing year round to keep Penn Staters connected and united?
Yeah, so we, outside of our game watches, which is a huge success. I mean, that's probably one of our staple events. We have fundraisers throughout the year for Liberty Ball, which gets Penn Staters involved. We partner with the local affiliate groups here as well. We partner with SMEAL, AAAOC, World Campus. We're always in talks with Cheryl Bonner from Career Development. I love Cheryl. Got to give her a shout out. We're hosting a networking event actually in November. We're doing a suicide prevention walk October 3rd. We have a few other fundraisers for Liberty Ball coming up. So, we try to incorporate a little bit of everything to cater to every Penn Stater, right? Whether you're looking for a networking opportunity, whether you're looking to get engaged in the community, or you're just looking to come out and have a great time. We have all of that. And we try to embed that here in the culture.
Shane, we've come down and visited with the Philly chapter on a number of occasions. I think of the 2 trips that we've made to the Palestra to cheer on our Nittany Lions to victory on both occasions. Your chapter really leverages Penn State athletics, but really no sport more than football. Talk a little bit about what you all do for football and how that promotes what the chapter is doing overall.
Yeah, so every Saturday we have 2 great partners. It used to be Fieldhouse, for those of you that know from back in the day, but Fieldhouse is still closed from the pandemic. So their sister location, City Tap, in Logan Square, has been hosting us. You'll see a picture there, right there. And Wissahickon Brewing has also been hosting us, and they're 2 great partners. And what we do is we take reservations, till the day of. People come in. Last weekend, we packed that bar, Paul and John, like you would not believe. I mean, we did it safely, but it was great to be back in person and to have that experience. And we get the crowd going. I mean, I try to do a good job. You can hear my voice is still a little scratchy. I've done the last 3 game watches, and I have a great time doing it. But Paul, you always say there's nothing like a room full of Penn Staters. There's nothing like a Philly bar full of Penn Staters. And what we do at these, we get the fans there and we get the alumni there. Some of them aren't even alumni; they're just Penn State fans. But we hand out, cards that have all of our events on them. We put them all over the tables. We really create an experience, and we try to get the word out on how to become a member and how to get involved. So, we leverage the fan base and the attendance that we have to fundraise, to spread awareness, and to get others involved.
All right, so next game day is 2 days away. Can you take us through what Saturday will be like for you in the chapter? Do you have chapter members coming up to Beaver Stadium? And with Penn State playing Villanova, obviously a college in the Philly area, does that add any extra dynamic? Do you think you're going to run into Villanova fans Saturday at the game watch?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're anticipating that. In fact, I talked to my partner at City Tap, and they're like, "Can we take Villanova reservations?" And I said, "Why not? I mean, let's create that competitive environment, and let's have some fun with it. I mean, it's a once in a lifetime thing here, right? And we want to encourage that. And our fans are great and would love that. So, like I said, we try to create an experience, and that's what we're going to do. And in all transparency, I've done the last 3 game watches, Paul and John. Selfishly, Pittsburgh's coming to town versus my Fightins this Saturday, and I'm going to be at the game cheering them on because I want a red October. So I will not be at the Nova game watch, but I will have board members there having a great time spreading the word for us.
That's amazing. Well, I was giving you a little bit of a hard time when we were off air about your banner behind you and not having your group of distinction patches on there. But I am thrilled to let you know that the Philadelphia chapter has once again been selected as a 2021 group of distinction chapter for the Penn State Alumni Association. Everything that you all did during the pandemic has once again set you and your chapter apart. And for that, we're truly grateful. So congratulations on being a 2021 group of distinction.
Thank you. And Paul, can I just comment on that? I want to acknowledge the board really quickly because they were resilient, whether it was the Liberty Ball Committee or it was the Philadelphia chapter. I mean, we raised over $30,000 virtually for Liberty Ball, and it just really resilient. And they were able to pivot to a virtual fundraising environment. And we're truly proud of everything that the board and the committee was able to accomplish. So we take that with great pride. So thank you.
Shane, if people want to get and more information about your chapter or about Liberty Ball, see, I got it right that time.
There you go.
I've been to the Liberty Ball. It's a wonderful event. If people want more information about your chapter or the Liberty Ball, where can they find that?
Yeah, sure. So our website's libertyball.org or pennstatephilly.org and our social media platforms as well. You can email me at president@pennstatephilly.org or chair@libertyball.org, whichever one. I get both. So, whatever you need, we're here, and looking forward to hearing from folks.
Wonderful. Thanks, Shane, for joining us on Football Letter Live.
Thanks for having me, Paul and John. It was a
Thanks,
pleasure.
Shane. Congrats.
Thanks.
All right, John, a great example of a chapter just doing some great things to keep Penn Staters connected. Why don't we try to head back out to the tailgate lots with Paul Anderson once again and hear how he tries to keep Penn Staters connected to each other when they visit Beaver Stadium. I'm Paul Clifford, CEO of the Penn State Alumni Association, and we are out here in the North Tailgate lots with Paul Anderson, the past president of the Middle Tennessee chapter. Paul, tell us a little bit about your tailgate that you have going on here.
Well, so we have this tailgate spot. We've loved being here. We're kind of a central point for everybody coming in from other chapters. They've known where we are. We've been here 13 years. We have people stopping by from today. We just had Vegas stop by here. We've had Fort Lauderdale, I get Richmond. So we get to be a really good connecting point for different chapters because they know that we're here. They're always surprised that Nashville is here because it's a long way to come, but we're here, and we just love doing that. We're able to direct some cars that are coming through, and keep people moving in here, and we just love doing that.
Absolutely. It's a great connecting point. And I remember 2015 football season, right? You actually made a love connection where you hosted a wedding out here. Tell us a little bit about that and how that came about.
So that was a great time. We had a Penn State alum from Nashville that was marrying an Army guy, and that was the game they were playing that day. So I got with the Nittany Lion Club and the Alumni Association, and we were able to kind of arrange a few extra perks. We had the Lion and some cheerleaders. Absolute miserably rainy day, but the best day of their life. We set up an altar over off to the side of where our regular tailgate is. There's a nice judge that is 3 rows over that came, and we just set everything up and had a great time with that.
That's amazing. I remember, I've seen the video, pouring rain, right? That game, if you remember 2015, I think it rained for most of the home games, at least early in the season. But still a wonderful event here at your tailgate.
At the tailgate.
How did you get involved with the Middle Tennessee chapter?
Well, so I've been in Nashville about 19 years. I've been a Penn State volunteer through the Alumni Association Admissions Office for 25 years or so. And when I got to Nashville, actually our chapter, the Middle Tennessee chapter, had folded. And we were kind of going through a rebirth of the chapter and got on board involved with the board. And we just grew that chapter. We're one of the leading chapters, we think, in the nation. We love winning awards. Our viewing parties get 100+ people in them back in Nashville. We move them around. And then we have a lot of alumni that usually are up here with me. So we have a great time.
Wonderful. Well, Paul, we want to thank you for all you do for the Alumni Association, and thank you for joining us on Football Letter Live.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, that was fun visiting with Paul on Saturday before the game. We had quite a crowd actually during the interview. Fans were walking by and were very interested in knowing what we were doing. I think it was Paul's cowboy hat that drew the interest, and so we had cheese heads a few weeks ago, and now the cowboy hat. And so, but we'll also share that video out on social media, and we'll hopefully bring you a couple more of those videos throughout the season to show you kind of like how our alumni chapters really do have a presence, not just at watch parties across the country, but also right here in Happy Valley on game day. So I am John Petishnock. I am here with Paul Clifford on Football Letter Live. Thank you for joining us. We've talked about game day and the win over Auburn. We just spoke with Philadelphia chapter president Shane White. And now it is our absolute honor to bring on our next guest, Brett Brackett, a letterman at Penn State. In true success with honor, he doubled up in his degrees, 2009 in marketing and 2010 in economics. Standout wide receiver for the Nittany Lions. He finished his career with 56 catches for 714 yards and 7 touchdowns. Also enjoyed some time in the NFL, and we'll talk to him about that. And also currently, he's the general manager for Uplifting Athletes, which I know for many Penn Staters that will sound familiar. Uplifting Athletes started at Penn State and has grown across the country with chapters at universities really across the entire country. And so we'll get into more about Uplifting Athletes and all the great work that they're doing. We'll talk with Brett about his time at Penn State. And Brett, thank you for joining us here on Football Letter Live. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Paul. It's awesome to be here. And congratulations to Shane and the Philadelphia chapter for the recognition of all the amazing stuff they're doing. That's incredible.
Yeah, and we just talked with Shane, president of the Philadelphia chapter. You live in the Philadelphia area. We'll talk a little bit about that too. How did you get? Before we get to that, can you talk a little bit about your journey to Penn State and kind of what attracted you to being a student athlete at Penn State?
For me, I grew up in Jersey, and I'm the oldest of the siblings in my family, and I wanted to stay somewhere close. But the biggest thing for me coming out of high school, I had a bunch of offers, which I was grateful for. I wanted something close to home, and I wanted something with the strong football tradition where I could get the best, academics possible, but a place that, there was character, there was a place that there was passion, a place that all those things were just kind of not just talked about, but they were represented. And every time we went to Penn State to visit, there was just that feeling I got that this was home. It was very, very natural and easy for me. So it wasn't a tough choice at all.
And Brett, I imagine you found all those things here in Happy Valley. What stands out most to you about your time playing from Penn State? Any vivid memories?
So many. I mean, just look at these pictures that are flying up here. I can remember that game against Illinois like it was yesterday. We ran that play in practice, and Daryl and I connected on it. And then like a half a step off during the game, and the ball goes like right past my fingertips. But I mean, not the best memory there. A little disappointed by that one. But the one that stands out the most to me has to be Ohio State in 2008. It was just one of those environments that I could never forget. Every day, every game, pregame, I'd go out with the quarterbacks and we would kind of throw the ball around a little bit. And towards the end, we would just kind of like take some shots at the 30-yard line at the goalpost. And we were doing that, and we'd go down towards the end, and we'd always dunk the ball over the goalpost before we left. Well, I did it, and I just got a glop of grease on my glove and my hands, and we realized the football was covered with it too. And that was my first experience with, why is there grease on the goalpost? And I found out asking the equipment guys, and they're like, yeah, they grease the goalpost because, if the team rushes the field afterwards, they don't want people to slip off, so they don't take the goalpost out. Well, I mean, we know how that game ended. They didn't have to worry about the goalpost, but it was a pretty cool way for me to learn what that was all about. And one of the greatest memories in college football, going down there, that place was raucous. And, we're driving down, backup quarterbacks in the game, and we score, and the place goes silent except for the section of Nittany Lion fans that traveled to the game that were in the corner of that end zone going nuts. And it was so cool to kind of share that moment with the team and all the fans that traveled to Ohio State that day to see that victory.
Yeah, the picture that we're seeing right there, it points out that you were a co-captain for the team during your senior season. We also should point out that you were a 4-time academic All-American at Penn State, so absolutely maximized your time there as a student athlete. We were talking earlier in the week about kind of like the importance of the alumni network and how you connected with Penn State alumni, after graduating. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that story? You were in Jacksonville, and you were able to connect with Penn Staters even though you were, far away from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, during your time at Penn State, you always hear about the alumni and how deep and far and wide the alumni reach. And until you get out of school, you don't really know what that means. So I graduated from Penn State. I had kind of bounced around a couple of rosters at the NFL at that point. and landed in Jacksonville. Unfortunately, I tore my ACL that year, so I was on IR. And that gave me an opportunity to kind of have a little bit more of an exploration outside of football. So the guys during the week would prep, and then on Saturdays after the walkthrough, guys would go to the game, and I'd have time to myself. So I got to look up online, see where the local spots where the Alumni Association hung out in Jacksonville. So I turned into every Saturday, I was down on Atlantic Boulevard. It actually was a majority Florida State bar, but in the back corner, there was all blue and white. And I got there, and it was just like I was home. There was people there cheering on the Nittany Lions. Both the big screens in the back had the Penn State game on. So that's where you could find me every Saturday that year. And then I ended up in Nashville with the Titans. And when I first got there, I was on the practice squad. So again, a little bit more lax of a schedule when it comes to game time. So I can remember being up on Demumbrian Street. There was an Irish bar that hosted Penn State alumni for the game. So I got up there. There was actually some familiar faces, not just people in blue and white, people that I had known. So it was really cool to be, so far from home, so far from Penn State, but to have those familiar faces and that comfortability of home wherever I was.
We know you spent time in the NFL in Philadelphia. I wonder if Paul Anderson looked familiar to you on the video from Nashville, from your time there. But you battled your way through 4 training camps and played 3 years in the NFL. How did your time at Penn State prepare you for life in the NFL, both on and off the field?
It prepared me tremendously. I think it was one of the best experiences, best opportunities I could have had from a college experience, both on and off the field. John had mentioned I earned 2 majors, 2 degrees at Penn State, and just the academic course load. And it wasn't just difficult, but there were challenges there, both from a peer perspective, that people were willing to kind of work together and learn what you had to get done to graduate and all that kind of stuff. But the professors, they were there to help you. They wanted you to succeed. They made it difficult for you, but they were there with the resources to help you learn and all the things that, they can't just hand it to you, right? If you're going to go out and be successful after you graduate, they have to give you the tools to be successful and teach you how to use them. So I was grateful for the hands-on learning experience. I knew all my professors and they were, great to work with. And then same with the classmates. And then from a football perspective, it couldn't have got any better. Taught you toughness, taught you discipline, taught you being on time, and then all the things you need to know about X's and O's to be successful. So I'm grateful for the opportunity that I had, and I'm grateful to be a part of the family that is Penn State through and through.
So a part of your Penn State experience was uplifting athletes, and we just wanted to ask, how did you initially get involved with uplifting athletes, and at what point did you realize that this could be a career for you, where now you're the general manager of the organization?
Yeah, I got involved with Penn State uplifting athletes very early on. I can remember there was a note on the dry erase board as you walk in the locker room. There was going to be a meeting at that point, it was Lift for Life. And it was just when I was in school when Scott decided to turn it into a nonprofit, and from an event to the nonprofit that now is uplifting athletes. So I volunteered because I just felt like I was fortunate to be in the situation I was in, and I wanted to give back as much as I could. And there was a group of older guys leading the chapter at that point, and Kevin Suey and Jason Ganner and Pat Weber. And I was like, well, cool. This is a way for me to get to know the guys and volunteer and do something that I like to do. And it quickly hit me hard how impactful what the team was doing for the rare disease community. Specifically, we received a letter from a woman who had moved away from family and was really excited about her outlook on life, but something just wasn't quite right. She ended up seeing a doctor and was diagnosed with a rare disease, and her kind of flipped her script. She was, concerned, didn't know what to do. The doctor told her that her best chances were to actually go home and live out the rest of the life she had with her family, because there wasn't a cure. There weren't treatments for the disease she had. And she decided to go home and do what the doctor told her not to do and Google her rare disease. But fortunately for her, when she did that, what popped up was what the Penn State football team was doing for rare diseases. And she wrote in her letter that she went from feeling alone to feeling like she had 120 guys that had her back and were in this fight with her, and she was going to beat it. And for me, that touched me so much that we never met her, right? But we had an impact on her by using the platform of sport to help others. And so from there, I knew whatever I could do to continue to have an impact on others with the power of sport, I was going to do. And it just was fortunate that I developed a strong relationship with Scott and the organization, and stayed in touch over the years while I was playing. And when I got done, it was just the perfect scenario that fit my desires and what my passions were in life. So, being around sports and being able to help people is just a beautiful thing for me, and I'm grateful for it.
Shout out to Scott Shirley, alumni council member, the founder of Lift for Life and Uplifting Athletes, now working closely with Brett Brackett. Brett, Uplifting Athletes has, we like to say it's Happy Valley made, right? It started here at Penn State, but has now kind of grown into a cause that's really been embraced by college football teams and by not just college football teams, but athletes across the country. Talk about how the cause has grown and why it touches so many people's hearts.
Well, it's just one of those things that, Penn State has just great traditions, and it's something that I think it's 18 years now since the first Lift for Life at Penn State, and it's grown because of what happens. It's that inspiration of hope that the power of sport can create, and it's something that can be recreated at all these schools that we work with. We have 24 different chapters across the country now, but like you said, because of the relationship we developed and teaching athletes about the platform they have to make a difference, and then empowering them to use that platform to help people with rare diseases through, funding researchers like we do through the Young Investigator Draft. We funded 25 different researchers with over $440,000 in just the last 3 years through the Young Investigator Draft. And it's, that connection to the cause and the direct impact that those researchers are having, and just the quality of people in college football and the people that want to give back. So in the rare disease community and sports have similar parallels. It's pretty wild how the two communities connect and help one another. And it's just been something that's spread across the country and given opportunities to, we work with NFL players, MLB players, we worked with Olympians. We obviously have the 24 chapters across college football, and it's been embraced by the rare disease community. The rare disease community is like college football in the sense that it's a diverse group, and they're young and old and come from all different kind of backgrounds, but they come together with one cause that supports them. And what college football did at the time was it had a surplus of attention, and college football was growing into a big business. So there was an opportunity there for the organization to grow what was resources that were ample in sports that were needed in the rare disease community. So trying to be able to provide that through the awareness and fundraising that we do has been really cool to see it grow and everybody catch on to it.
Yeah, we've our awesome producer, Vince Longaro. He has been sharing information on the screen about how you can learn more about uplifting athletes. Lift for Life. I mean, many Penn Staters know this, but it's a wildly popular annual event that the football team holds that benefits the rare disease community. They did have it this year, even though it wasn't open to the public. It was still something that they fundraise for. I mean, Paul and I are at that event almost every year, and it is so well attended. Fans show up early. They thank the players afterward. It's not just a lifting competition, but afterwards the players spend time with the fans and the kids, and they're signing autographs and they're posing for photos. And it's just, I mean, it's a true community event. And so, thank you for mentioning Lift for Life, because that was kind of, that played a big part in uplifting athletes.
Yeah, the root of what uplifting athletes is started with Lift for Life, and there's still probably a lot of people at Penn State that recognize the name Lift for Life and may not quite know as much about uplifting athletes. But it's unique at Penn State, and it's not a surprise to most Penn Staters to understand that not every Lift for Life looks like the Lift for Life that happens at Penn State. We give the freedom to each school that we work with to turn their Lift for Life into what their community would be, and not all of them are even open to the public. So it's a special event. I can remember the Lift for Lifes when I was in college. There was upwards of 3,000 people that were meeting at Haluba Hall to support us and support the cause, which I think is what helped this. It's the community, right? It's the community that at Penn State. It's the community that supports the cause. It's the community that supports the rare disease patients and what they're going through. The people are what make it special, and we're just in a position to help. And Penn State's just one of those places where there's a surplus of loving people that want to give back and help.
Yeah, no, that's so well said, Brett. I mean, we were just talking earlier about, I think it was game day or the Letterman coming back to town. It was like, it's so easy to take it for granted because it happens so often here at Penn State, but it's important to remember that, people make this happen. And so, we're very blessed. Hey, sticking with Penn State, kind of going back on the field, you were on the 2008 team that won the Big Ten title, went to the Rose Bowl. You played in every game that year. You had 3 catches in the Rose Bowl. What was it about that team that elevated that team to a championship level?
Wow, it's a lot of just the incredible talent. If you look at the roster that was put together for that year, it was a culmination of a couple of really, really strong recruiting classes, plus some teams that might not have had the most success. It was a combination of guys that knew how to work extremely hard to earn every inch out of what they could get, plus some really, really extremely talented guys. I mean, think about some of the first rounders that were drafted from that team. You know, you guys had Jordan Norwood on recently, who won a Super Bowl from that team. There were some really, really talented football players on that team, some great people, and some really hard workers that knew how to make the most of it. So I think the combination of, you know, I can remember in the summers in Haluba Hall when we're running 110s and just guys just pulling together, right? Guys trying to get every inch out of every workout that we possibly could, trying to get that 1% better. And when you have the talent and the work ethic combined like that, you know, the sky's the limit. So, you know, putting all those pieces together, and obviously there's a lot of luck that plays a part of that when it comes to football, staying healthy and all that kind of stuff. But it's magical when you can put all those components together. And, you know, that team was incredible to be a part of. And the journey we were on, I'll remember it for the rest of my life. And the thing about it is those guys, right? A lot of those guys, you talked about Letterman coming back to the game. When you see each other, it's just big hugs, you know, it's family. It's, you might not see each other. I still text regularly with some guys that both grew up in Jersey. You know, I haven't seen them back in a game in a while, but like, hey, you don't live too far away. Let's get together for a game. Let's watch one at the house. Like, it's family. So that those bonds that you create over the summer is special, and in the off season. And I actually wear that, you know, ring when I go and talk to kids these days, right? Go talk to some high school kids, and I tell them, I'm like, look, this is flashy. It looks awesome. But this ring to me means more about the blood, sweat, and tears that went in the off season, the grinding in the weight room, the hanging out with your teammates just to get to know each other and get closer. And then the practices in the hot of the summer. And then, you know, all the ups and downs when you go through a season. That ring represents so much more than just, you know, the Big Ten championship that year. So it was a special team. It was special time in my life, and I'll never forget that season in particular.
Yeah, those of us who are fans, we remember the games, right? We remember the highlights. But every time we talk with Letterman, they bring up the relationships that they forged in the locker room, on the practice field, in their social lives outside of football. We also hear them talk about the lessons, these life lessons that they've learned through being a Penn State football player. And a lot of those life lessons that they hear and kind of relive every day. I'm sure you think every day through your day-to-day work about with uplifting athletes, right? You hear it in the voice of Coach Joe Paterno, right? What are some of those lessons that you learned and that you learned from Joe Paterno that you kind of think about each day?
Man, well, there are so many, honestly. I think there's two things that I'll mention. One is just the presence that he was, right? He was one of those guys that he talked the talk and walked the walk. So a leader by example, but also had to be a figurehead of a program and speak up as well. But if you just watched him, you would learn something from him. And the way that he cared about you, the way that he loved you, the way that he, you know, looked out for you. And also he said what he was going to do. He didn't just say something, he acted upon it. So if a guy was slipping up academically, he held you accountable, and you didn't play because of it. So there was a big part of that I'll never forget, right? He held you accountable, but he loved you, right? He wanted you to be better. That was something that'll always stick with me. And, you know, there's so many different stories he told throughout my time in college. There's one in particular I remember, and I'll have to give you the short version because there's no way I'll get it right. But basically, long story short, is he talked about a guy who cut his thumb off, right? And he had a decision between going to the guy that could do it for $1,000 or the guy that could do it for $10,000. And he didn't really tell you during the story who he picked, but at the end of the show, somebody gave the guy a hard time, and he kind of like gave him one of these to let him go. And the thumb just goes flying. So he goes looking for the thumb. And the moral of the story was, you can't take shortcuts, right? You got to, you know, to do it, you got to do it right the first time, or else you're going to have to fix it again, and you're going to pay more for it next time. So he was very big about, you know, touching the line every time we were doing our conditioning. And hey, I can remember when I was a sophomore in college, I got moved from quarterback to wide receiver when I was in college, and I had some rough spurts learning how to play wide receiver. And I would get down on myself a little bit early on, like, man, I'm never going to get this right. And I can remember he had the whistle in his hand, and he kind of just like smacked me upside the head with my helmet. And when you have a metal whistle against a plastic helmet, that thing just rung in my helmet. But he basically said to me, he's like, look, like, get out of your own way, like, shake it off and just go. Like, you have the talent, you have everything you need, just go do it. So there's so many more that I could continue to talk about, but we keep talking about people, right? I mean, I was a senior in college, and he came up to me in practice in the middle of the season, and by name, he asked me, how are Nick and how are Bobby doing? Those are my little brothers. And it just kind of baffled me that neither one of those guys were really getting recruited by Penn State. They were both in high school at the time. So it's not like he was going to know their names because they were these big recruits. He was so good with people and actually knowing who they were and caring about them and their families, that when you got recruited by them and he said that, your parents needed to trust him in order to let them go and grow up at Penn State, that was serious to him. And he took that very serious. And that to me really showed that, wow, he remembered my brother's names and knew to come up and ask about them, not because they were big recruits, but because he cared about me and my family.
Well, hey, John and I can both attest that these lessons endure with you every day. I'm going to put John on the spot a little bit. But John, we were trying to track Brett down to get involved with Football Letter Live. And just one of his messages back to us really stands out about a guy that lives success with honor and really learned from Joe Paterno. John, I don't know if you'll share what Brett said back to us.
Yeah, so it kind of needs context for this, and I was going to follow up with Brett afterwards. And so we had a pep rally at Wisconsin a few weeks ago, and just through different challenges, the band and the cheer and the Nittany Lion couldn't travel, and so we always try to get Letterman involved. And Miles Diefenbach, he stopped by, and we reached out to a few Lettermen for videos. It was a very last minute request. I mean, I shouldn't even have done it. It was like a day or two before. And Brett, to his, I didn't know this was coming. So, anyways, from a timing perspective, it didn't work out. And I'm like, hey, not a big deal. Like, we're going to have Brett on. Like, we're so gracious that he's making time for us on Football Letter Live. He could be doing like a million other things. And Brett, just so you know, like, I will never forget this message that you send. And like, it was a life lesson for me. And Brett said, hey, like, my apologies. I hope you give me another opportunity to prove my reliability. And I just stopped and I thought, could it not have been more obvious that this guy's a Nittany Lion, that he was coached by Joe Paterno? And I felt, like, Brett, you're a superstar. I mean, look, we loved having you on, but it was just, we thought it was a testament to, the life lessons that you learned at Penn State and how you take things seriously. And so I hope you don't mind it. I didn't know that was coming, but that was, I think that speaks volumes about how serious you take, being a Penn State student athlete and being, reliable and being credible. And it was just, look, that spoke volumes to me. That's something I'll remember for the rest of my life, Brett. So I hope you know that. I
appreciate that, man. Thanks a lot. That felt like I let you guys down. And that's, for how much love I have for Penn State and anybody Penn State, I was like, man, but you're right, man. It's like, it's one of those things that I think I realized it real late at night. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was literally recording things for Uplifting Athletes. We have a challenge going on right now. And I was like, oh, great. I can do this. Like, it just slipped my mind and I felt so terrible, man. But thank you very much. I appreciate that. And to give me another chance to show you my reliability, and I'll make it happen.
Hey, you're making it happen right now. So no worries. Hey, so just, we talked about, uplifting athletes, but, let's talk a little bit about what are your responsibilities as the general manager? And if people want to learn more or help out or get involved, like, what's the best way for them to do that?
I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. Uplifting Athletes obviously started at Penn State with the Lift for Life, and we've grown a lot. So we turned into a national organization that is an umbrella organization covering all 7,000 known rare diseases. So, what my responsibilities are very internal, getting the processes in order and trying to make sure that we're in a position to grow because we have an opportunity to do so. We actually hired a new employee recently, Penn State grad, which is awesome. So shout outs to Amy. And, we have a team of people that we're trying to put together to grow the impact that we're having on the rare disease community. We started some really cool events. We're actually running one right now called the 7,000 Mile Challenge. That's anybody can get involved to log miles. We're trying to achieve 7,000 miles in 10 days. Obviously, the 7,000 represents the 7,000 known rare diseases. We did it over 10 days to represent the 1 in 10 Americans affected by rare diseases. That's one of the things that we've done to try to incorporate more people on a national level. We're funding research through what we call the Young Investigator Draft, which is like the NFL draft, where instead of drafting a player that's going to have an impact on a franchise, we're drafting researchers, giving them grants to fund research that we think is going to have an impact on the future of rare disease treatments and cures. So we're doing some of these things on a bigger level. And It's one of our responsibilities is figuring out how to put all that together. And then the other fun thing I get to do is, as a director of sports impact, is trying to figure out how we can position athletes, empower athletes to help people in the rare disease community, whether it's by fundraising or setting up uplifting experiences with local rare disease patients and their families. It's really, truly an awesome experience for me to make those connections and help people along the way. So anybody can help by going to upliftingathletes.org. Like I said, there's a challenge going on right now. It's free to sign up, and there's no fundraising required. We're just trying to gather people together, support the cause, and get active and log miles however you can. But if not, your local chapter at Penn State, they'll have some fun events coming up. And, the Young Investigator Draft is actually in Philadelphia at Lincoln Financial Field every year. So the Philly chapter can support that as well. So biggeth thing to do is go to upliftingathletes.org. You can email me at brett@upliftingathletes.org. We have our social media accounts. Twitter is @upliftingath, and Instagram is @upliftingathletes. So we appreciate the support. Penn State has always come through and helped uplifting athletes and been a huge impact on the rare disease community. And we can't thank everybody enough.
Well, Brett, our alma mater says, may our lives swell thy fame. And you continue to swell thy fame of dear old state by the impact that you're making in the fight against rare disease. And so thank you so much for joining us on Football Letter Live.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and I hope to see you guys in person soon. We are.
Penn State.
Absolutely, Brett. Thank you.
Boy, John, look, it's 8 o'clock, almost 8 o'clock at night, and I'm ready to run through a wall, right? These Lettermen just they juice me up every week.
Yeah, I mean, they're so easy to root for. They're so easy to support. Again, you talk with Brett, and I'm thinking like I'm going to sign up for the challenge tonight whenever I get back home. It's like, and I'm going to be thinking like, what can I do to support uplifting athletes? What can I do to get involved? Maybe there's somebody I'm going to meet tomorrow and I can tell them about uplifting athletes and they'll sign up. It's just like, again, like you talk with these Lettermen, you think to yourself, like, what can I do to help? What can I do to get involved? What can I do to even make a fraction of an impact that they're making every day? And so it was, just these are conversations that, I'm going to keep with me for the rest of my life. They're things that they're special. We're very lucky.
Absolutely. Look, I think about gratitude a lot. I think about perspective, right? We had Adam on last week, and, we talked about all that Adam's overcome, right? Many of us haven't faced what some of these guys have overcome. Brett Brackett in his life and in his world sees people suffering from rare disease, and he wakes up every morning to join the fight against that. And it's just, it gives me perspective that no matter how much I think is, a challenge in front of me, I know that there are others facing bigger challenges, and it kind of helps me keep life in perspective. So I'm going to keep these for the rest of my life as well.
Yeah, it's also good motivation. Like when you're part of the Penn State community, it's, you're surrounded by people who are looking to make a difference every day. And, it sort of is like, all right, you got to keep up, but it's in a very good way. I mean, James Franklin talks about the most competitive environment in college football at Penn State. And it's, not that it's competition, but it does serve as inspiration and motivation because, the days when you're tired, like the easiest thing in the world is to not do anything. And so, when you see guys like Brett step up every single day, it's inspiring.
Absolutely. Well, John, we've been putting out a lot under the umbrella of the football letter, right? I know we've talked about the emails that folks receive on Saturday, and then again on Monday. You and Vince have been working hard on the blog. Talk a little bit about the most recent post on the Football Letter blog.
Yeah, so we've had a couple stories out this week. One we just posted today was about the last time that Penn State has played Villanova in 1951. We have the game details from that, from the legendary Ridge Riley of Villanova. Villanova actually won 3 straight against Penn State, so we're looking to snap that losing streak on Saturday. But it was just, Ridge talked about speaking with Rip Angle the day after the game, and this is in Rip's only his second year of being a head coach in 1951. And I just thought, I read this tidbit in the story, and as soon as I read it, I turned to Vince and had to tell him. So in 1951, when we played Villanova, the university president, Milton Eisenhower, whose brother Dwight, of course, was the U.S. president, and which, Eisenhower Auditorium is named after, he was sitting in the student section that game for Penn State Villanova in 1951. Like, could you imagine just, the university president hanging out in the student section?
I would imagine the vibe was a little different on that day.
Yeah, probably. Uh, good point. Tickets were like $2.40. Penn State rushed the ball 59 times. I mean, I was going to try to spend part of my day figuring out when was the last time Penn State rushed like even close to 59 times. And I'm like, I've got too many other things to do. Like that'll take me forever. And so, but again, like it's, those are things that's worth remembering, because Ridge Riley was there and he spoke to Rip Angle personally after the game. And so that was nice. I also had an opportunity during James Franklin's press conference on Tuesday. I think most people have seen this, or maybe not from TV, but they have made some enhancements to the South Tunnel with blue concert lighting. I don't know what the proper word is, but that lighting is just phenomenal. They painted that whole area. There's a huge 1-0 banner that the players see right before they take the field, which of course is his mantra. And so, I didn't ask, my question to James Franklin was, what dynamic does that add for the team coming out to the field? And he said, it's a short walk, but the players sensed it. And he talked about the other enhancements. And I kind of took it a step further just on my own. Like, if you're a recruit and you're walking through the South Tunnel and you see this on TV, like, how do you not want to just commit to Penn State on the spot? And so, I thought, James Franklin had a very good point. He said, when the eyes of the sports world are on you, which was the case on Saturday, you want to present everything that people are seeing with Penn State in a first-class way, that you want to treat people in a first-class manner. And so, I don't know how much those lights cost, but I can guarantee you it was worth the money. Like, the production value is 100x whatever the cost was. And so, we were fortunate enough to be in a really nice spot Saturday for the game to get that shot with the players coming out. And so, we shared that and just a little bit of the backstory. So people might see that on video or on television or on social media. It just shares a little bit of the backstory. And so that's really what we try to do with the blog. A lot of outlets out there do a phenomenal job of covering recruiting, or, they hand out position grades. And so like, we don't want to compete with that. We want to try to just give people a different perspective and obviously talk about Letterman and just try to go at things a little bit different way. And so, hopefully those are stories that people appreciate and acknowledge. And but those are just two examples, and we're sharing those in the chat area, and hopefully there will be more to come. Well, not hopefully, there will be more to come. There will be more to come throughout the season.
For sure. It reminds me a little bit of Brett Brackett's kind of boyhood favorite team, the Dallas Cowboys, and how the Cowboys come out of the tunnel a little bit. I don't know that we should be copying too much about what the Cowboys do nowadays, but I love the enhancements. I know recruits love that stuff, and so great video, and kind of thanks for bringing that story to Penn Staters, John. What can we expect next week on Football Letter Live?
So we can also expect one of Brett's former teammates, Justin King, will be on the show next week. He was actually a big-time recruit, helped turn the program around when he arrived in 2005 with Derek Williams and among others. He was back with the team as a recruiting coordinator a few years ago, moved on to the XFL, has had a really interesting, post Penn State career, also has a lot of family connections to Penn State. So he'll be on the show. And also our president, Kelly Lynch, she will be on the show next Thursday. And we'll have a lot to discuss next week with her and Justin.
Well, hey, John, great show. Special thanks to Vince Langaro in the background here, making all the videos happen, all these great photographs that we've been sharing all night. And thank you for joining us and for all of your support of the Penn State Alumni Association. If you're a member of the Alumni Association, we're so grateful to have your support. If you're not a member, go on out to our website right now at alumni.psu.edu, and you too can become a member of the world's largest alumni association. John, we're going to end tonight like we end all of our programs and all of our events with the alma mater. Until then, we are
Penn State.